doing something with us. And I really think that this is something that you are going to be excited about and really look forward to. So it will be important because there's a lot of times that she has a lot to do with you in a really short amount of time, so that we get in, we get settled, and we get quiet. Because if we run out of time, there's nothing we can do. Okay. Do you have a question, Maggie? That's good. Can we have this?
So today and for the next Fridays until probably the end of the year, until the end I'm here, I'm going to be doing an artificial reality book. What that means is it's a book that comes to life while I'm reading it. But I'm not just going to do that. We're going to work on some other things. And today we're going to be working on recognizing and using onomatopoeias. Does anybody know what an onomatopoeia is?
Yes. It's like a word, but it's supposed to be like a sound.
Yes, it is the word sound, like, or.
Oh, sorry, that was.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, thank you. My phone should have. And. Ooh, anybody else can think of an onomatopoeia?
Boom. Oops. Pow.
Oh. Anybody else have it? I love it. Okay, so this is what I want you to do. While I'm reading the story, when you guys notice an onomatopoeia, when you guys notice me say one, I want you to give me a thumbs up because I want to see if you guys can tell what they are when we're reading them. Thumbs up, we understand?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try again. Give me 5. Okay, when we come across an onomatopoeia while I'm reading, what are we doing?
Is it a thumb?
Give me a thumbs up. Do we announce it? Do we go, I said an onomatopoeia, Mrs. Heinzelman? No, because that would be incredibly distracting while I'm reading, right? And then we're going to do something with the sheets of paper. So don't worry about them now, okay? Got it?
Them in front of you. We shouldn't hear your sheets of paper either.
Ready?
Them in front.
Welcome to the world of Weirdwood Manor. Strange things happen around him. Boom! Oliver's eyes snapped open. He let out a yelp as he fell from the air and bounced back into the plush blue leather seat beneath him. He blinked groggily and looked around as the car jostled and bucked its way down an old forest road. He breathed out slowly and tried to let his shoulders relax. He must have dozed off again. He shivered involuntarily as he remembered the dark creature that had plagued his brief and restless sleep. Another nightmare. Why couldn't he ever have a normal dream, like a normal kid? He snorted. Then he shook his head. Normal, as if. He peered out. Oh, sorry, wrong direction. You were all awake, right?
Yeah.
Okay. He peered out the window to see ferns and moss and ancient-looking trees roll by. Smiled. They must be getting close. This was definitely the kind of place that a person like Arthur Weirdwood would want to live. It looked like something straight out of a novel with elves and orcs and dragons. Oliver pushed that thought away, instead busying his mind with the excitement of what was to come. He still had trouble believing he'd actually won. There had been thousands of contestants, each a talented artist, or writer, or young inventor. A few of them had even been somewhat famous child prodigies who were constantly being interviewed on talk shows or news programs. But Oliver was a nobody, and all he'd had to enter in the contest were a few pencil sketches or imaginary creatures, and yet somehow that had been enough. Now here he was, one of 3 grand prize winners, being escorted to Weirdwood Manor, where he'd get to spend an entire week with the great Arthur Weirdwood. He smiled and settled back into the big blue leather seat. This was the first time Oliver had ever been in Lindsay. He'd never forget how this long, shiny monstrosity of a car rolled up to the curb in a small subdivision he called home. Oliver had been so excited that he'd almost forgotten his backpack as he rushed out the door to meet the limo. He looked back with a big smile to say goodbye and thank you to his latest foster parents, Mary and David Brown, but had just turned in time to see the door slam shut and hear the deadbolt slide into place. He tried hard to ignore the sting in his eyes and the heat that painted his cheeks their familiar red. He thought he would be used to it by now, the rejection, the suspicion, the fear. Every time something like this happened, it just seemed to make this part of him hurt all the more. The driver had glanced at Oliver with an awkward smile, but then cleared his throat and with an air of professional detachment, ushered him into the most incredible back seat he'd ever seen. Oliver's amazement had quickly pushed away any thoughts of this last foster fiasco. He had laughed as he settled into the plush leather seat, taking in the dark curtains, the blue couches, and the ornate rug. This was an almost perfect replica of the magical limo in Arthur Weirdwood's story, The Seven Sons of Midnight. Even the puzzle lockbox where Lord Lucius kept his dearest secrets was set into the side panel. When he had sat down, the seat back behind his ears had given a soft exhalation, like the car was breathing. He had pressed his ear to the warm leather and heard a slow thump, like a heartbeat. Again, exactly like the book. It gave Oliver the willies. Bump! The limo bounced Oliver into the air, and once more he barely caught his backpack and sketchbook before they had a chance to crash to the floor. The corner of a loose paper peeked out from behind the front cover. Oliver frowned as he pulled it free. He had read it at least 20 times already, yet some small part of him clung to the hope that maybe he'd gotten it wrong, that maybe there was some error or loophole or something that could assure him that this was all just some big misunderstanding. Before he realized it, his eyes were scanning the fateful letter once more. Dear Oliver, we regret to inform you that David and Mary Brown have requested your immediate removal from their protective custody. This being your sixth foster home transfer in the past year, we have exhausted all current options for home-based foster care and must unfortunately remand you to the temporary custody of the Juvenile Corrections Authority. Your caseworker will fill you in on the details upon your return from Weirdwood Manor. Have a wonderful week! Sincerely, Meryl Boxley, Minister of Children's Services. Oliver's cheeks flushed yet again. It was the same story, time after time. Of course, there was always some well-thought-out official reason for moving him, but the true reason was always the same. Cursed. That was the word whispered or muttered when nobody thought he could hear. Oliver hated it, but he supposed he understood it. Strange things happened around him, scary things, things no one could seem to explain. Not my fault, whispered Oliver, even though everything inside him screamed that the opposite was true. He had tried so hard with the Browns. He'd kept his room spotless, helped out with meals, and done more than his fair share of chores, and yet he'd gotten lazy. Went a bit too far with just one drawing, and he winced, pushed the unpleasant memory aside. Mary and David had been his last chance. No one else seemed willing to take him in, and so he was to be shipped off to some horrible prison for kids. He gritted his teeth. It just wasn't fair. Without realizing it, Oliver had whipped out his pen and begun to draw on the back of the page. His anger and frustration poured out of the furiously scribbling pen, etching seamlessly random shapes and forms onto the empty space. Oliver blinked and looked down at what his hands had almost unconsciously drawn. He shivered. From an artistic standpoint, the drawing was incredible. Lithe muscles, dark-scaled, leathery wings, and wicked curved talons were rendered in expert detail. In fact, it was probably one of the best dragons Oliver had ever drawn. What worried him was that he'd once again drawn this dragon. He needed to put the drawing away before Oliver felt a rush of dark energy hurtle towards him from somewhere deep within the drawing. He slammed the cover of the sketchbook closed on the letter and held it down to keep its trembling pages shut. He began to feel lightheaded and heard the familiar ghostly whispers closing in around him. Darkness tugged at him from inside the sketchbook, making his stomach churn and his muscles grow weak. It's getting worse, he thought. But the feeling slowly subsided, and the sketchbook grew still. Oliver let out a deep sigh of relief. Bump! The limousine launched into the air, over another pothole, and then it didn't come down again. Oliver hovered a few inches above his seat. The smell of old books and hot lightning filled his senses as an eerie blue glow drenched the world around him. He heard the deep thump of the limousine's heartbeat, slow as a glacier. Thud! Not again, not now, he whispered. Oliver, not again, not now, whispered Oliver as gravity slowly began to tug him back towards his seat. Lump! Flash! A dark blur streaked past the window, and a sound like scraping metal and flapping sails. Oliver tensed. Thud! A deep, rumbling growl rattled the windows. Oliver felt the hair on his neck stand on end. He rubbed his eyes and tried to slow his breathing. No, this is not real. It's just a dream, and I'm going to wake up any second now. He wondered vaguely if he was trying to convince himself or the big hulking thing outside. Lump! Growling stopped. Oliver held his breath. Thud! Lump! Just the throbbing heartbeat of the limo. Oliver took a deep breath. He couldn't be sure, but it seemed like the world was slowly turning back to normal. Well, said with a sigh, that could have been worse. An ear-shattering roar broke the silence. Teeth and claws squealed against the metal and glass of the limo exterior. Oliver threw himself against the opposite side of the car, spinning to face his attacker. Their eyes met, and Oliver cried out in surprise and terror, No, not you! The dragon, more real than any drawing, more solid than any dream, bore its teeth in a hungry grin. It breathed on the limo with a deep, throaty growl. The window, the door, the curtains, everything began to dissolve as if it were nothing more than a fog or mist. Oliver pushed himself hard against the opposite door. His heart pounded and his palms were slick with sweat. First the nightmares, then the drawings, and that strange energy. And now this? He'd seen many strange things over the past few years, but nothing had ever been this real. The dragon pushed closer. A hungry, predatory smile framed rows of razor-sharp teeth. You're not real, Oliver stammered. But the dragon only grew more and more solid. He could feel the dark energy surround him, pressing in on him with such force he could barely breathe. Oliver fought it, pushed against it with all of his might, but it was too strong. His insides twisted and the power snaked and pulsed through his body, pulling his mind down into a deep darkness. He screamed, but all he could hear was the roar of the black dragon. Boom! Oliver smacked his head against the door of the limousine as it hit another pothole. He winced and pushed himself up, his muscles weak and shaky. He blinked a few times and shook the lingering confusion from his mind. The haze was gone. The limo was solid. No dragons. He let out a deep, steadying sigh. Everything was back to normal. The limousine slowed and came to a rattling stop in the middle of a thick patch of ancient trees. The haunting patch of some unseen bird wafted in on the fresh forest air. Oliver looked around confused. Was this it? Where was the manor? His backpack had been knocked over and his clothes and books were strewn all over the floor. He scrambled to shove everything back into his bag and opened the door. And when the door clicked and swung open with a sigh, a long, stiff arm and a long, stiff sleeve held the door open for him. Oliver took a last quick look around the limo, then zipped up his backpack. The long, stiff sleeve was attached to a long, stiff suit, the owner of which said, "Welcome to Weirdwood Manor, Master Oliver." As he stepped outside, he noticed that something had fallen to the ground. Oliver bit his lip as he bent down to pick it up. It was the drawing, but it had changed. The dragon was different now, covering the entire page and glaring at him with a terrifying, hungry look. A cold shiver ran up Oliver's back as he snatched it up and crammed it back into his sketchbook. He looked up at the face smiling at him from above the collar of the stiff black suit and gasped. So that is Weirdwood Manor. Now, what's in front of you? What's in front of you is one of the rooms that's in Weirdwood Manor. Now, I want you team up with somebody, one or two people, but you cannot have the same room. You must have different rooms.
Can't have the same rooms.
Finish this. Yeah.
There you go. Completely different room. There you guys go. And somebody that doesn't have water. You guys have water. These guys over here don't have water. Don't have water. Yes, yes, as long as you guys don't have the same person in a group, you can group up 3, you can actually group up 4, there's 4 different groups.
It's gonna be in the same room.
Okay, who else doesn't have a partner, we have one.
Are you two together? Oh, I think you're seeing you.
Good? All right, give me 5.
Okay, so you sit here together. Right here, right here, right here.
Very good. That took what, like 3 seconds for you guys to all come down from that? I'm super impressed. Raise your hand. Put it on the back. Give yourself a pat on the back. That was awesome. Very good job. Okay. So what you have in front of you is a room that is actually in Weirdwood Manor. Now, Weirdwood Manor made a game. I own said game. I'm going to try to figure out a way that we can play said game, but I haven't figured that out yet because it's kind of a complicated game. But these are the rooms that are in it. And this is what I want you to do with your partner or partners. I want you to come up with some sentences that has an onomatopoeia in it that will be descriptive of said word and something that you would expect to happen in the room. Okay? Like there's one with a lily pad. What's an onomatopoeia? You might hear in a room with the lily pads and a bunch of waters. Right? Okay. So I want you guys to come up with one sentence for each room.
Oh, I get it. That is one. This one's here. Oh, yeah.
We're not seeing how they connect. We're coming up with sentences with onomatopoeias that we would hear in the room.
Can we tell you?
Yes, we're gonna do it in a minute. All right, now. 5, 4, 3, 2. Thank you. I think that deserves another pat on the back. Excellent job, guys. Okay, everybody have enough time to come up with a sentence. One sentence for each room that you guys partnered up with. Okay, let me see. Anybody want to share? What about the mad scientist lab? Did anybody come up with a sentence that has a what in it? An onomatopoeia. It has to have an onomatopoeia. All right, go for it. Share your mad scientist.
The mad scientist exploded the room.
Oh my goodness. I love it. Excellent. Boom! The mad scientist exploded the room. Now, wait. Now I want you to hear the difference. Boom! The mad scientist exploded the room. Or the mad scientist exploded the room. Which one makes you see the mad scientist room more?
The first one.
Oh, right? Boom! It's so, it just like makes you feel like you're in the story. Excellent.
Second one.
All right, somebody for the lily pad room. Lily pad room. Whoa, 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 guys, she's like reading for me and I can't hear her. You want to hear her? I want to hear her. Go ahead.
Active listening.
What? The mad scientist fell into the water.
Splash! The mad scientist fell into the water, so he went from his lab and went across the lily pad and then he fell in. Okay, I like it. We started the sentence again with it. Did you have an exclamation point at the end of that? Splash. No, you don't have to. It doesn't require it. You do now.
You do now.
Okay, which one sounds better? Splash! The mad scientist fell into the pond. Or splash. Or, sorry, the mad scientist fell into the pond. Splash! Can you picture somebody falling into the pond and the water going, can you hear it almost? That is the power and the beauty of onomatopoeias. All right, what do we have next? We have the pools of Avalon. Anybody have a sentence with an onomatopoeia in it? Pools of Avalon? Go for it, sir. Oh, yes, the onomatopoeia. As you walk into the room, you turn and you hear a certain. Nice. Or as you walk into the room, you hear a sudden.
It doesn't make any sense.
I know.
It has to understand.
Because onomatopoeias are descriptive, right?
You know something. You know something nothing.
You hear a sudden nothing. That's it.
You know something.
Now, do all onomatopoeias have to be loud and boisterous?
No.
No, you can have ones like. Or. You're not going to get it. Beep, 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 beep. That's more like a. Okay, next room. What was the fourth room? The cartographer's chamber. Anybody have an onomatopoeia for the cartographer's chamber?
Scientists on the table. Boom! It cracked open.
Oh my goodness, the scientist, he's everywhere. The scientist sat on the table, boom, it cracked open. Oh. Okay, now which one sounds better? Scientist, or sat. The scientist sat on the table and boom, it cracked open, or the scientist sat on the table and it cracked open.
No.
Boom! Can you picture this guy just falling into the table? The poor mad scientist who splashed into the water, then he fell into the table. Did he do anything in the pool of Babylon? No, he goes. Anybody else have a sentence? They're like, I really want to share my sentence. It's so good. guys, she's like, I don't know, 7 feet, maybe 8 feet.
Red scientist sit on the floor. Fractures and it opens food.
Oh, we're booming again. I like it. Boom. You know one place that you see onomatopoeias all over the place? Comic books. Yes. So much so that they even made a villain named Onomatopoeia. All he does is talk in onomatopoeias. Yes, actually, he's got like a little dark looking face. It's hilarious.
He did the girl.
Huh? Oh, another sentence. Yes, I want to hear this.
The man scientist. Well, he was red.
Thanks, enough.
Ooh, he heard somebody. He's heard the other person falling into the water, I bet.
No, but it was
What about what we're gonna keep with the mad scientist? The mad scientist walked into the room.
oh,
Right? Does it make you think of the floor and kind of hear it? Okay, so somebody quickly, because this was our goal. Students will identify and use onomatopoeic words and sentences to enhance their writing. They will find the onomatopoeic word. Did you find onomatopoeias?
Yes.
Oh, all right, good. We did that. Check. Did we create sentences with onomatopoeias?
Yes.
Oh, check. And do we understand that they help make it more lively and vivid when we are talking or when we're writing?
Yes.
Yes? So we did this, right? So that was good. Woo! All right, end of the day. Mrs. Max class. Stand up, please, and go line up at the door.
Stay put. Bye, Mrs. Van. Why keep you Mrs. Heinzelman? Hi, class, will you go to your seat, please? Go.